Okay, friends, I don't usually do this. I don't have a podcast, and this isn't a podcast, but I've just celebrated 1 year of being self-employed and running a one-person business. It's not the traditional model, I suppose, in the L&D space when people look at consultancy or building products or platforms. So I get a lot of questions from people on LinkedIn and my newsletter and community spaces about what I do, how I do it, business model, blah, blah, blah. So I've taken all of those questions that people give me and asked people for any questions they have again on LinkedIn and in my community and other communities that I partake in, just to see if I can answer some of those. And the hope with this is that to give people a bit of an idea on the reality of what it takes, what you should know, and what you need to do when running your own business, and also the models available out there, because there's not a one size fits all. You don't have to do everything that everyone else does. So this will be very much Q&A. So I will try my best to get to all the questions, but I can't promise I will do for everyone. Without further ado, let's crack into it and hopefully we can get some good stuff out of this. All right, so first question is from Brendan, and I will not use surnames in case people do not want to be outed from any places that I hang around at. So Brendan asks, I'd be curious to see a contrast between traditional in-house, traditional outsourcing, and your operation model. Okay. It's kind of hard to answer that because they're all very different. I suppose traditional in-house is very much just an L&D team servicing the organization. Traditional outsourcing is basically people who once did that now providing that service to L&D teams at those organizations. And then my operation model or business model is very different. So I'm not a consultant. I don't look to particularly work with companies to consult. My main business model is my newsletter, Still These Thoughts, which hopefully a lot of you read. If you don't, go sign up to it, where I share all of my insights and practices from the work I've done over the last 20 odd years, the work that I do now in learning technology spaces, and some of the companies that I do choose to work with, which I'm very blessed to. My model itself is not what we look at traditionally of people go to consulting or coaching or building learning for organizations. I think that market is incredibly overcrowded, and I'll talk to in a few moments in how I decided to do what I do. So in terms of the contrast is, that's really it. Traditional in-house, it is what it is. Traditional outsourcing is, many people go for coaching, consulting, building, and then I'm kind of doing this strange quasi, I suppose people might call it creator economy entrepreneurship type thing, where I'm really focused on a newsletter as a service and a product, and that's number one. Everything else kind of sits outside of that as a bit of a, if you imagine octopus's tentacles going into other things that I choose to partake in should I wish to, but the main model of the business is my writing, my books, and my newsletter. So I hope I answered your question, Brendan. Next question is from Rachel, and you'll know why I kind of held off on some details from the previous question. So Rachel asks, I'm interested in how you decide where to focus, how to set your fees, and how you find clients. All good questions, all popular questions. First one, I decided where to focus because I think my realm was quite niche in the L&D world, where I focus very specifically on learning technology. Anything can be learning technology, really. And I really understood from an early part of my career that I am a techie, I'm a nerd, I'm good at that, I'm good at explaining that to people. So that felt like a right career path internally at corporations. And it made sense to do that when, if I ever decided to do anything, which I am doing it now. And that's why Still These Thoughts was born, because I saw a huge lack of understanding and application in HR and L&D with how do we use technology to improve performance and tech. So I kind of knew that was my niche. That's always been my focus. I enjoy it. I really do love it, I have to say. So yeah, I knew what I wanted to do. And I guess there's a gap in the market for that. There's not many people out there, I think, that I can think about, maybe 10 or 15, that purely focus on technology and learning technology, implementation, maximization in the market. So yeah, those are all the reasons why I come to that. In terms of how I set my fees, it's completely different for every project. I don't think you can have a one size fits all. because you're going to deal with all types of people, all types of products, all types of services. My best advice to you is to evaluate the work that you're doing, the worth of that work based upon your own IP, the skills that you bring to that. If you are doing additional coaching and consulting, and go from there. I can't give you a bulletproof framework for that. That's just how I do mine. I think about how much will I pay for something, if it's doing something in my newsletter or courses as an example, if it's working with companies, it's all very much aligned to how much I feel my skills and IP are worth in the market today, and how that correlates to what I'm offering. How I find clients. So as I mentioned before, I'm actually not going out to find clients. I didn't set up this business to be that way. What has happened as a bit of a unexpected and fortunate event is that I have been able to have lots of people get in touch with me because of the newsletter, because of showing my work publicly. So I am very fortunate in the fact that I've not had to go look for clients. And because I'm not really providing many services or products for clients, I haven't done that. So I haven't done any outbound work. It's just people that are interested in my work, would like me to do stuff with them or help them with something, and they've reached out to me. Of course, that is part of a machine of spending years and years and years building still these thoughts before I took it full time and writing the newsletter for free for, at the beginning, no one 5 or 6 years ago when there was 1 subscriber or 0 subscribers, and building it into 4,000 plus people today. So that takes time to do that. That's not something you can listen now and go off tomorrow and clients will just find you because you post on LinkedIn and do this. That's, you're talking about a near over half a decade journey to get to that position to do that. So yes, so in answer to that, or in sum, is I don't go looking for clients, and that is because I'm not necessarily pitching them services and products, but clients do find me through social presence, newsletter, writing, building in public, all of that good stuff. So look, Rachel, I hope that helps, and I hope that answers your questions. Next question, Anna Maria. I'd love to learn how you decided between, or the balance of, B2B consulting and B2C courses, newsletter, all the other stuff you do. What have you looked at to help you take that decision, even if you are still in the process? Very good question. How I decided on the balance, to be quite honest, is I did not want to go self-employed and then go from having 1 boss to 25 bosses. So I really wasn't looking to do any kind of consulting or working with companies. My whole basis has been that, and I still to this day, the prioritization is I want to be direct with my customer, which is L&D individuals. And that is through the newsletter, through communities, and through courses. I think that's the best way I can serve people with the knowledge that I've got from my experience and all of the things that I'm able to do in this kind of crazy world and life that I live. So even to this day, I'm very focused on B2C. That's all I really want to do. I do still do consulting and B2B purely because the opportunities come up. Some of them I'm interested in, the door opens, so I'll go and do that. But I definitely don't look at that as a long-term thing. And that will probably be one of the first taps that I turn off once I start not to enjoy it. But in terms of the courses and the newsletter, I really enjoy those. I really enjoy sharing the stuff to help people improve their practices. So I will always do that. And then what have you looked at to help you take that decision? I think there's a couple of things with this. So one is that I'd already spent 5-6 years writing the newsletter, building up the portfolio, building up the blog. I really, really enjoy that. And I thought that I want to do more of that. So I want to do more of the things I enjoy in life, not more of the stuff that I don't. I, internally didn't always enjoy internal L&D and a lot of the bureaucracy and pointless workshops and courses and stuff that would go on. So I didn't want to do more of that, is my main thing. And I think my business model and the way that I work is very much based upon, if you look at the way people, writers or YouTubers or people in this creator economy, although I hate that term, and I think you shouldn't just be a creator of creating rubbish stuff like Mr. Beast or whatever, but looking at how these businesses are run, how people are able to build products and make profit and still do things that they enjoy doing. So my business is more closely aligned to that. And I research a lot of people in that space, especially in the space of writers and people who are writing newsletters, to look at how can I do the thing that I love, but also afford my tea and biscuits at the end of the day. So I did huge research from podcasts, reading stories, really understanding what is all the kind of economics of running a business like that. And then looking at the levers I'd have to pull, the skills that I would need, the infrastructure. They were all huge bits in making that decision to say, yeah, I want to go with full-time in the newsletter and then eventually go into the courses on there. But, as you said at the end, I'm still forever in that process. I'm still looking at what's right for me at the time. I've mentioned before, the newsletter and course will always be my mainstay, but I still entertain consulting and workshops elsewhere. If they're interesting, if they make sense for me, for business, for time I spend with my family, I'll have all those in the process. But I'm forever a student. I'm forever listening, asking questions, reading, watching, trying to learn every opportunity that I've got to see how people older, younger, same age, whatever they are, how they're doing things, what are their operating systems, what can I learn from that, what can I integrate, and I must, take out, add new things, probably weekly. And there's a great Bruce Lee quote of that where whenever you're learning or absorbing, absorb what is useful, disregard what is not, and then add what is uniquely your own. And that's been a big proponent of how I've built a lot of the things that I do, because I am forever the student. I'm always open. I'll listen to people, and if it makes sense in terms of what I'm doing, I'll grab onto it and I'll try to put it there. So look, I hope that helps and gives you a bit of balance between what I'm trying to do here. Like I say, it's ever evolving, but the mainstays are try to do more of what I love, less of what I don't, and make that able to pay me money at the end of the day. So yeah, all right, Anna Maria, I hope that helps. So the next question is from Kristen. It's a bit of a meatier one. So, there's a few questions here in this question. So first one, how and when did you decide to jump from in-house to freelance? I must admit, I was kind of dragged kicking and screaming. I probably could have done it earlier than I did, but I was very risk averse and very hesitant, because you hear about all these stories about people who do it and then it falls apart, or it's just loads of things. But I think eventually I got to a point where a few things happened that kind of validated the data for me. Even at this point, so let's talk about a year ago, I did this is I had people look at vanity metrics, like 3,000 plus people reading the newsletter, 15,000 plus people on social media, LinkedIn and other things on YouTube. Most of those metrics, people would say I could probably go do something with that. I hadn't. I think the real light bulb moment came for me when I left my head of L&D role for a corporate. I'd gone to work at a startup, and quite quickly I'd figured out most of that startup's customers knew who I was without me being introduced to them. So they already knew about Steal These Thoughts. They'd already seen stuff that I'd published, and they were really curious to speak to me. And that was really interesting, because what that was showing me is that the market was listening, the market was interested, and I was getting data there. So that's eventually what pushed me to do it, because I was like, I'm not going to do it now. It's probably never going to happen and people seem interested. So I did. And it was probably the best decision I made, because we're here now. I'm chatting about this and I'm able to share this with you. So that was really what drove me to do it. But I could have done it earlier, but I really wanted to take the time to build up the kind of the credibility, the knowledge and the understanding before jumping into the world. The next question from Kristen is, what were the biggest struggles or obstacles you had to overcome when transitioning? And the biggest thing, I think most people will say this, is you have to do everything. You wear many hats. I hate financial stuff, taxes, invoicing. God, I hate that, but it's part of the parcel. You have to do it. And I think just understanding that you got to do all that stuff. You are on your own. You haven't got other departments to help you. That can be a big shift for sure. And it could be lonely at times as well. But the plus side of that is you can get to decide what you want to work on, how you spend your time and who you work with. And I think that's a pretty good trade-off, to be honest. So those were the main things for me. But I say I didn't struggle as much because I prepared myself for nearly 5 years with the work that I did in companies, with building Steal These Thoughts on the side. Like I'd write 52 newsletters a year for free to people, and no one was paying for anything at that point. So I was always learning about things that I need to do in terms of technology infrastructure and how does this work and how do I set this up. It was a long kind of work in progress. This leads nicely into your next question. What did you do to prepare before making the leap, if anything? So just that, I'd done this all for free for a long, long time. 5 years, I put on free workshops. I went to conferences for free. I did the newsletter for free and it still is free for everyone now. Continuously, 52 issues a year, non-stop, never miss one. And it's been 6 years now. So that's really it, is making the decision to keep doing it, keep learning. A couple of things that I did do before making a leap is to make sure in my corporate world is that if you're going to transition to do something from a self-employment perspective, you need a USP. People need to be interested in what you're doing. And I think a lot of that helps out with if you have good experience in a corporate life. So yes, unfortunately, that does mean working for certain companies, job titles on projects. That gives you career credibility. So I'd work for, big retail enterprises, technology companies. I had some nice names on my CV. I've been a head of L&D. So it was definitely beneficial to have those roles, learn from them, and use them as a perspective of career credibility because I'd been there and done that and got many t-shirts. So I think that's really important to understand. You don't just go off and, people get interested because you write some social media posts. You need to have value. You need to bring value. And you need to be able to back that up with your experience and your career credibility and your social credibility to that. I think bringing those bits together is incredibly important. Otherwise, you just won't. It's a crowded market and there's so many people doing so many things that you've really got to build your own edge or advantage in that space. So yeah, I've been playing around as well before I made the leap. I had a few things on the side that I was doing from a project perspective with still these thoughts just to test the waters and see if it is something that I knew viably I could do it from a design perspective, but did it work financially? Would people pay me to do stuff? And, would that allow me to survive and live a life? And eventually all those markers were ticked. So yeah, I spent time making sure everything was prepared. I didn't just come up with a business idea and then leave my job next week. It was years and years and years of spending time learning the craft, building the credibility, and then walking into what I do now, which I think has laid a great infrastructure for any success that I've had in the last year. And then your final questions I'll do as two-part are, was there anything you thought would be really easy but surprised you as more of a challenge? I think saying no to people, I struggle with that. I get a lot of outreach and I feel bad saying no, but it's part of the whole process. You need to learn how to do that. You need to learn to focus on the things that give you energy, the things that make sense and you want to do. And it's flattering to get, the offers, but you do have to learn to say no and be very intentional in the things that aren't going to add value, but you can't give your time to everything. So I think that surprised me as a bit of a challenge. And then vice versa. So was there anything you thought would be really challenging but ended up being easier than anticipated? What I can say is that I released AI crash course in the second month I went self-employed. And I did it because I'm really curious in the space. I've been learning about the space for years and trying out tools. I just really wanted to share it with people. And I thought, well, this might be a good way for me to test a bit of a product as well. I thought that was going to be really hard. I think to build it, it was hard. I didn't expect the overall success from how many students signed up. I think I had 300 plus students and financially what that would mean for me as well. That surprised me. I'm not saying that's going to be the same for everyone. I may have just come at the right point of time for that with the right solution and the right expertise. But I found that easier than I had anticipated. But again, it's all contextual on what you're doing. So, Kristen, thank you for the questions. I hope that's been helpful for you. First question from one of two Matthews. So the first Matthew, are you a feel the fear and do it anyway kind of person? Or is every decision planned and executed with total confidence? If you feel the fear, what helps you keep on moving? I thought about this question a lot when you sent it to me. I'm going to say I don't feel fear. That sounds like very action, action superstar. I don't feel no emotions type of thing. I think it's a bit of both. There's definitely some planning, but there's very much a fly by the seat of my pants strategy in here as well, where I'm human, so I get worried, but I do have a lot of confidence in my own capabilities and skills. I'm one of those people where I'm very high on hopium, I keep saying to people. So I'm very hopeful, and I kind of feel like if you've got the will, you'll find the skills. I do feel that in myself. I've always had the will to learn, to take time, to invest time. And I'm very confident that, for my 7 years of life now where I've seen that again and again. So it's a bit of both. I do plan stuff out for sure, but there's still always fear. And I still go through it all the time. Like you don't know how things are going to turn out. You just jump into it and you just feel the fear, and what's the worst that's going to happen? No one's going to die. If you set yourself up appropriately, you can always go back to the corporate job. You might have some savings for a while. All these kind of components where it helps you have that safety blanket in there. But I wouldn't say anything is done with total confidence ever. And I think what keeps me moving on, really importantly, what keeps me moving on is I want to design career and life that I am happy in. I think I became unhappy in my corporate life for a variety of reasons, regardless of how well I was doing there. But I think what I really understood was I want to do more of what I like, and I want to be able to say no to the things I don't like. I think that became very difficult for me, especially as I was moving up in the seniority ranks of the industry. So that's what keeps me moving on every day. When I think about it, is that looking after my family and all the people around me, and then looking at how can I be the best version of myself for them. And the way I'm able to do that is this business that I have now, the way I operate it, and the energy and excitement that I get from it that I wasn't getting in the corporate element. I'm not against corporate. I think it's very important to go get your study somewhere, work with great people, work in great places, work on great stuff. I'm not one of those people that says, go be an entrepreneur, don't do corporate. I think that's rubbish. I think there's a lot to learn in corporations worldwide, good people doing interesting things. You get great education there. But what keeps me moving on is right now, I don't want to do those things. I want to do more of the things that I enjoy because I've been able to build an infrastructure to do that. I want to keep that. So in order to keep that, I need to keep on keeping on and doing those things. That's the best way I can describe it pretty much. So hope that helps you. Matthew number 1. More questions from a different Matthew this time. So this is Matthew number 2. Did you start Steal These Thoughts as a side hustle? Yes, I did. So I started Steal These Thoughts in 2018, just an experiment where my curiosity led me, because at that point in 2018, everyone was saying newsletters were dead and writing was dead. But I have always really enjoyed long form writing. One of my favorite newsletters and blog posts had been from a chap called Tim Urban called Wait But Why, and I read so much of his stuff from other people's long form stuff for ages. I'm a real lover of that. I don't see many people doing that in the market. There's all this bite-sized kind of stuff. I'm definitely not the guy to come to for bite-sized kind of content, but I enjoyed long form. I enjoyed really understanding the psychology of people and how they think and how that applied to learning. So Steal These Thoughts was born out of, one, I'd love to write long form and share ideas. And two, I was really interested in what does it take to build your own kind of brand and specifically newsletter, and getting people to sign up to that and market. And there was a whole learning process there. What I was really intrigued in, well, how do you do that? Are newsletters really dead, and can you make them successful? Because I'm not the biggest lover of social media, even though people see me a lot on there. I don't particularly enjoy it that much. I do enjoy kind of more personalized writing and connection from there. So it did start off as a side hustle, and I did that for 5 years before I jumped into it full time. But I still did a lot with it. So I did loads of videos that you see now. I did the newsletter every single week without fail. So yeah, it definitely was just born out of something I was doing, I was experimenting with, and then it merged into what it is now. So there was never a plan. I never sat there and went, oh, I'm going to build this thing and I'm going to turn it into this business, and this is how I'm going to make my money and live my life. And that, it was never there. It would be nice, there was probably a point so I was like, oh God, it'd be really nice if I could do that. But I never had a plan to say, this is how I was going to do it, and this is what I was going to do. I'd probably be doing this a lot sooner if I did. It was really just that I enjoyed writing long form. I'm really curious about learning new aspects of how to do things in life and business. So, like I say, building newsletters, building websites. How does all that work? How do you promote that? I was really intrigued because a lot of life is sales and marketing, in my opinion. And that's how it went. I just saw more opportunities, more doors opened. I continued with it, and I said, you know what? Something here, let me keep cracking on. As technology has got better, as it's been easy to access business platforms, it's been easier for me to understand how can I scale these things? How can I have a blend of monetization so I can live a life that I want to, but also do things to give back to people, to improve people and what they're doing. So that's where it went. So the next part of your question, looking back, would you recommend a side hustle first? Yes, I definitely would, because I should say the second part of that question is, would you recommend a side hustle first or carefully planned and fully committing so your time and energy is less split? This will depend. I think what I should say is, during the period I first started this, I didn't have children. And that always changes when you have family and kids, but you end up finding a system to make the time when it's going to support all the things that you're doing. So I would suggest a side hustle purely because I think it's a very risk-free way of testing the water, because there's no guarantee that you're going to like the life that you're going to want to do that. Some people are just better in corporate jobs. It's just better the structure with the consistent paycheck, with knowing exactly what's going to happen. It's pretty, certain what's going to happen. This life that I'm in now, nothing is certain. Like, you could be doing great 1 year, 1 month. It could suck the next year. It could be awful the next month. You don't know. It's just how it goes. There's no real, unless you're doing really well, there's no real kind of security on that from there. But you have to also understand, do you want to do that? There's a lot of work involved. There's none of this rubbish where it's like you work 4 hours a day and whatever. I work more now than I did in corporate. Yes, I love it, but I still work more than I did this. You have to be realistic and look at, maybe you should just do a side hustle and test something to figure out, is this something I'll be interested in? Can I commit to this? Do that thing for 6 months. If you can do that thing for 6 months, you've got a pretty good idea. If you can't, I think, you know what you know. If you can do, I'll give you an example. I was spending 5 to 6 hours a week on still these thoughts, maybe 10 hours sometimes when I was in corporate. That was because I really enjoyed it. But what that showed me was I had the discipline and motivation. Even in my work weeks were really busy, and I had 60, 70 hour weeks, and I was going all the way around London or doing whatnot. It showed me that I was going to make the time to do it. So what I would say is definitely try out the side hustle. Don't do one of those things that I see a lot of people doing where it's like they never tried anything. They've just been in corporate and then they decide, I'm just going to go start my own business. I think that works for some people, but I think it's more difficult. I see more people fail at that than succeed. And I think a lot of that is because what they don't understand is they've never experimented to find out if that's something they would enjoy, if that's something they can be disciplined enough to do, because it is such a cultural shock of when you're working internally and it all seems a bit more stable and structured and straightforward versus when you're not, and you're doing negotiations, you're dealing with clients, you're setting fees, you're chasing up and all this stuff. It's a very, very different world. So I would do the side hustle just to figure that out. And your last question, and the last question for today, because it's come up to half hour now, is, were there any steps you specifically took while in your previous roles to prepare you for going solo? Yes, I absorbed everything I could. So when I was working at startups and scale-ups, I was talking to different founders about how they started businesses, how they run them, the mindset behind that. Like I said, I was a student, still am, always soaking up stuff. I spent a lot of time in previous roles talking to different people across all different industries to understand how the sales work, business schools, understanding from marketing teams, how do you capture attention. I spent a lot of time doing that, probably a decade. And I also made sure that I was at companies and in roles where I could learn the most. And there's a great saying, I can't remember who said it, I think it was Gary Tan. I saw it on Twitter somewhere saying, you're at companies for 2 reasons, either learn or earn. Be somewhere, hopefully, where you can do both, so learn, earn. But if you're at a place that does neither, leave. And that's how I've tried to look at my career is, I'm either somewhere I'm learning if I'm younger, or I'm earning, or hopefully I'm at somewhere I'm doing both, which is fantastic. And then I've just taken all of that knowledge that I've amassed from people and put it into what I know now. And like I say, that's just being curious. I mean, I don't have a mentality of, well, I joke about it, I don't really have a mentality of, knowing everything, because I don't at all. What I like to do is just keep learning it and keep experimenting. I think that's been a lot to my success. But I think the critical steps are, before going to do this, if you want to go solo, is go and talk to people who do it. What they like, what do they not like, understanding, some of the things that they have to deal with, the different types of business models that are out there. Obviously, the business model that I'm giving you is incredibly different to the traditional coaching or consultancy model, which I don't do. And I mean, just research as much as possible, because I think it's not for everyone. I have to get saying that the life is not for everyone. I think it all sounds lovely when you're in corporate. It's like, oh, I'm going to be free and do all this, but it is different for everyone. And I think it's got components in times of life where it works. And there's probably other components in life where it doesn't work. And you have to make that decision for yourself. So I think the specific steps are always going to be ask a lot of questions, find out as much as possible, do your research, try and focus on the things that you want to do. And then, run experiments and see how it goes. So look, folks, I hope that has been helpful. Obviously, a lot of it is off the cuff. It's a very Q&A based. If you like this kind of stuff, if you want to see it in the future, there's no guarantee that I'm ever going to do it again, because it's just kind of celebrating the 1-year anniversary of it. But there were more questions. If any of you listeners do have more questions, send them to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, find me at stealthesethoughts.com. Not hard to find. And you can ask me, and maybe I'll do a part 2 of this as well. But as always, I will speak to you next time.